All right, it's 3:30. I'll call the meeting to order. We'll begin with a roll call, please.
Roll call. Mr. Kuntz,
Here.
Mr. Harris,
Here.
Mr. Williams,
Meeting to order. And with roll call, please. It's going to be a long meeting if we listen to it twice.
Kevin, we're getting an echo that's got like a 30-second delay on the speakers in the back of the room now.
I got it. It's the YouTube stream. Sorry about that. It should be stopped
Okay.
now.
That's one too. All right. And may we note that Mr. Williams has just joined us?
we've got Mr. Kuntz, Mr. Harris, Mr. Kimbrough, and Mr. Williams present.
So we have a quorum. I have a Supervisor Jesse should be on the phone or dialed in.
I think he's on Zoom.
He's on Zoom. Supervisor Jesse is on Zoom, and Supervisor Jesse informed the board that he would be unable to attend the meeting in person today and asked to be allowed to join the meeting electronically. Therefore, we must follow the Board of Supervisors policy and rules of procedure established for electronic participation in meetings due to a personal matter or disability. Supervisor Jesse, why are you asking for approval to participate in this meeting electronically?
Mr. Chairman, he's trying to reconnect. He was on there and he got disconnected, so he will be on here momentarily.
Okay. Kevin, will you let us know when he's reconnected?
I will.
Beautiful weather.
I just sent him the link again, so hopefully he'll be able to get on it with his device.
Okay, well, why don't we
I've
proceed?
Yeah, I've got participants pulled up, so I can tell you when he joins too.
Okay, well, let's proceed with our prayer and pledge of allegiance, and then we'll see if Mr. Jesse has joined us by then. Don, would you mind leading us in?
I can, although I'll defer to my distinguished colleague if he would like to do
In
it.
case you didn't show, but you're so good at it. Would you mind leading us in prayer?
I don't mind. Let us bow our heads, close our eyes, and just meditate for a second. Gracious God, our Father, once again, God, you have led us to this historic courthouse. Father, it's that time of day that we have come, Father, to do your work. Father, that we can and be able to make decisions that were uplifting in the way that you would think. Father, be in our hearts and our souls now, Father, as we go forth, that we can do the things that you know, Father, that you want us to do for this here county of Middlesex County. In Jesus' name, we all do pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Ray, would you lead us in?
Yes, will you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Matt, you're gonna let us know when, okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, well, we will then move to the consent agenda, and there is a one change in the consent agenda, two changes actually. There are two work session minutes. One from February 15. And that was a work session of the Board of Supervisors, another on February 15, a work session with the school board. Those minutes have been revised. All supervisors have a copy of the revised minutes. They're available on the website, and we have handouts if anyone would like a copy. And with those updates as a change, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second,
Motion by Mr. Kuntz, second by Mr. Harris.
Mr. Chair,
Discussion?
on the discussion, I just want to mention a thank you to Tammy Lynn and staff for taking the time and care to take a look at the minutes and recognize that they are extremely valuable in terms of relaying even the PR issues we've talked about recently. Just our ability to communicate with the community is critical. And so I'm glad that we caught that the minutes weren't up to our standard. And I'm glad that Tammy Lynn and staff responded so quickly and thoroughly. So thank you to staff.
Thank you for that. Agree.
Roll
Any
call.
discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Kuntz.
Aye.
Mr. Harris,
aye.
Mr. Williams, Mr. Jesse, Mr. Kimbrough.
Aye. Thank you. Next, I will open the floor for public comment. Do we have any submissions?
There are no submissions for public comment, but we do have one request.
Make sure we have your name and your residence, please. Jackson.
Is that better?
Yep.
A few weeks back in the Southside Sentinel, there was a pamphlet called Windows on the Bay. In there was an article called Brick and Mortar. It mentioned across the Northern Neck and Middle Peninsula that commercial construction was on the rise, especially in lower Lancaster County, where Kilmarnock was experiencing retail growth, and in Whitestone, the whole town was undergoing renovation. It showed pictures of 4 new businesses under construction in Kilmarnock: a auto spa, a Starbucks and Matrix warehouse, a Dairy Queen, and a autologic office. It also showed 3 housing construction developments that were going on. In Northumberland, it showed 2 new businesses, a Dollar Tree and a Family Dollar. It also showed a new community park being built. In Middlesex, it showed a picture of the airport and sewer pipes that the county has partnered with HRSD to build a $41 million sewer system. So one may ask, what are the factors that are attracting businesses to other counties and not here? 1, accessibility. 2, security. 3, competition. 4, business rates. 5, skill base in the area. 6, potential for growth. If you notice, sewer and water was not on that list. So the idea of water and sewer will bring business to the county is a big lie. In closing, I would like to say again, and we'll continue to say, The main purpose of the water and sewer system is to satisfy the need of the richest district in this county, which is Deltaville. It's really a shame that as taxpayers, we have to pay for something that most of us will never utilize. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rob.
Hello, good afternoon, board members. I'm Russ Perkinson from Grays Point Road. Speaking for myself, I appreciate the county staff's efforts to have an additional 20-foot vegetated buffer put in around the fronts on the airport property. I think that'll help some in a number of years once the vegetation gets growing up to heights where it'll make a difference. So appreciate that. Speaking on behalf of myself and some friends with homes near the approaches on the north and south end of the airport, we see in the staff reports there's mention of developing a new layout plan for future facilities at Hummel Airport. We'd ask that any future high intensity use areas should be located away from homes. If at some point in time, additional developments needed closer to homes, we'd ask that those be low intensity uses. Also, we do not want to see Hummel turn into an all-night gas station for aircraft traveling up and down the East Coast. There's some thought that we should compete with Tappahannock, or some people have view we should compete with Tappahannock and West Point airports in some regards, but I think the people that have houses around the airport think we need a layout plan that's realistic and not grandiose wishes. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Russ. Would anybody else like to address the board? I'll close the public comment period. Next, we have reports from the constitutional officers, the treasurer's report on pages 40 through 45. This says report only. Is there anything you wish to say? Right. Commissioner of the Revenue also says report only on page 46 in your packet. And let's see, Mr. Jesse's not with us yet, correct? Is our county attorney Heather Lewis with us? Okay. Then the next item, an ordinance amendment to tax relief for elderly and disabled, and I'll turn that over to Ms. Lewis.
And Mr. Chairman, Carrie DeGraw is here as well, representing the Commissioner's office.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
Wonderful. I was going to ask Carrie if she would join me as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so in your packets on page 47, you have a memorandum. As the board requested at its March meeting that I amend the ordinance that allows for tax relief, real estate tax relief for qualifying elderly and disabled taxpayers. So to that end, I took the current ordinance, and which is in your packet on page 48. And the changes that I made are bold and underlined. And anything like strike through is something that I recommended removing, or I made some grammatical and some formatting changes. It was my understanding that the board wished to increase the maximum amount of relief that was available for for qualifying elderly and disabled taxpayers. Currently, that number is $500. I was not given, I don't believe there was a consensus determined prior as to what that maximum number should be. So that is one thing the board needs to decide, and then also the date on which you wish to send this to public hearing. I understand there may be 2 other changes, and if Carrie, if you wouldn't mind going over those for the board, we can make those modifications on the spot.
Okay.
Please. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So first of all, Ms. Diggs could not be here with us today, so I'm here on her behalf. So what I found is in the revised ordinance, Article 4, section or -1-2. In the previous ordinance, or what is currently in place, in 2007, when they initially developed the ordinance, the maximum amount of income that you could have to qualify was $25,000. That amount is now set at $36,800. And so I was thinking we would need to change that in the revised ordinance to reflect the current amount. The reason that it is such a big difference is that each year we adjust the values or the income thresholds based on the consumer price index. So this past year, the CPI was 6.5%. So the income threshold increased. And you'll see that every year, dependent on the consumer price index.
Just a quick question. Can we have the page 47 through 52 up here in case there's relevant information that we want to look at? So we're not just looking at the agenda. Can we scroll that up? Thanks. 47, I think. And then you said 36,800. Is that what you're proposing it go to? Or is that what it was as you're entering this situation?
That's what it currently is.
Currently is.
So as of, if you adopt the ordinance today, that's what the maximum amount that a family could earn within the household to qualify.
So you're
for the
not
program.
proposing raising that?
No, I mean, it's just reflecting it accurately within the ordinance.
Do you know when 36,800 was last looked at as a maximum family
Well,
income?
So basically, we have taken the 25,000 that was first adopted in 2007,
Okay.
and we have increased it every year based on the consumer price index.
Oh, so you do that every year?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's actually in the ordinance, section 5-2, that we adjusted every year based on the CPI.
And that has actually happened every year. It goes
Yes.
up and nobody really sees it until they go and try to claim it and they find out I'm at that limit or I'm not at that limit. And
Right.
They find that it changed by 3.4% or something.
Right.
And you
right.
round to the hundreds probably.
Yeah, pretty much.
Something
Yeah.
like that. Okay,
Yeah.
I understand. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, if it's okay, Carrie, I do have a follow-up question. If we can look at Article, Matt or Anne Marie, if you could pull it up, it's Article 4, Section 4-1-2, which Carrie is referring to. And I just want to make sure that I'm understanding. That provision says the total combined income during the immediately preceding calendar year from all sources of the owners of the dwelling living therein and of the owner's relatives living in the dwelling does not exceed $25,000. That's where you're proposing we need to increase that to 36,800? Because that is different than the section 5-1, which is the income brackets.
Right. And that's, I don't know what the legality of that is, if it's, that you want it, if we adopt it today, that you would want the most current figure in there. I'm not sure, what you would need to do for that.
No. And I understand that, but I guess, so I apologize, board. This is a change that I just learned of about, same time as you, real time. So,
Yeah.
no, it's
And
okay.
Mr. Chairman, Wayne is on Zoom now.
Okay. Do you want to stop and let him in?
Yeah, let's see if we can get Supervisor Jesse on board here. Supervisor Jesse, you informed the board that you'd be unable to attend this meeting. and asked to join electronically. So following the Board of Supervisors policy and rules of procedure, we need to go through the following questions. Supervisor Jesse, why are you asking for approval to participate in this meeting electronically?
He's having some connection issues.
It's a really bad connection.
Yeah, Wayne, you've got a very bad connection. We're catching about every other word. It may balance out in a second. It's the upload speed. Yeah, he's going.
Another suggestion, Mr. Chairman, I can call Wayne and see if he can just dial in by phone.
Yeah, I think that's what we should do.
While we're waiting for Wayne to join, would it be okay to continue? I think if I may, I'd recommend maybe Carrie and the Commissioner, May and I touch base later this week or early next week about this one change to 4-1-2. I want to make sure that I'm not fully understanding. I want to make sure I do, but it's a modification that I can make. It won't delay the process because this still has to go to public hearing. And I understand, I think, is the next section, Carrie, 4-1-3 as well, that there's a recommended change there as well?
Yes, so 4-1-3, basically right now, or what we've followed ever since I've been here for the last 10 years, is that your assets cannot exceed $100,000 in order to qualify. And in here, and what was in the previous ordinance was listed as $75,000. And so I was just going to ask that be amended as well to reflect the current, threshold for your assets.
Okay, thank you. So with that, I will revise what the board needs to review. There are 3 things. You need to determine a maximum amount of relief to be provided, which is currently $500. I would recommend approving 4-1-3, an increase from $75,000 to $100,000. And number 3, determine the date you want this to go to public hearing. And we can take those one by one at the board's pleasure. The 4-1-2, I would ask that I have a moment to work with Commissioner and staff on that. And I can make that change after the fact. But before the public hearing, sorry, just to clarify.
Don't, if we change 4-1-2, don't we also need to change 5-1 to essentially synchronize with it?
5-1 is correct.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've already
correct.
changed. Yeah, I've already
Okay.
changed 5-1.
Okay,
And so that's why I feel comfortable fixing that other
Gotcha.
section
Okay.
after the fact.
all right, so let's take those one at a time then, Heather.
Yes, sir. So the first one is what would the board like to have as the maximum amount of relief?
I guess that's why I'm glad the commissioner's office is here. I'd like to better understand how often the problem is occurring that people that we think might be deserving of relief are running up against this cap in the first place. Is the cap actually capping, and elevating it would solve a problem? So I guess my question, to be able to answer your question, Heather, is do we have any data on the people that are taking advantage of this relief? Can you speak to that a little bit and how
Mhm.
raising the cap would influence this?
Okay, so currently, so what we're looking at with the cap, as far as you're talking about the $500. So the $500 basically says that that is the maximum amount of relief that someone could get. So even if they qualify, it's not gonna say they qualify for 100% relief based on their income. It's not gonna wipe out their whole bill. They can qualify for up to 500. We found last year, especially when we did the general reassessment and values went up so much, that individuals that maybe otherwise wouldn't have had a bill because their taxes weren't over 500, all of a sudden they did have a bill, because their reassessment went up and it caused them to have to pay more.
So just to clarify there, last year or 2 years ago, call it, they didn't have a bill because they met the exemption entirely.
Right.
And then because of the assessment, suddenly the value of the underlying asset meant that they had a slight liability towards the county. And now they're on our radar
Well, yeah,
in a
so,
way.
so let's say, general reassessment. Prior home value was 100,000. And so without doing math in my head, you know, and with the exemption, it might have wiped out their whole bill. And so their taxes were only $450 based on their assessed value of their home. So the 500 would have covered them all. But say their assessed value jumped up $50,000, $75,000, which
Mhm.
wasn't unheard of last year.
Right.
So now their taxes were more than $500.
Yep.
So they then had to pay more.
So in a
So-
way, moving this cap up, the way it impacts those that are taking advantage of the relief, the
Mhm.
disabled and the elderly in that position. The way it impacts them is if there's been a large assessment raise,
Mhm.
now we're asking people who previously weren't paying to pay $12 and $80 and things like that.
Right.
And so
right.
it's not that we need to move the cap substantially higher. It's just that as we expand the maximum,
Mhm.
or not the max income, right? As we change with the pool with the
Mhm.
CPI every year, as we do per the ordinance that you mentioned.
Right.
It seems like we should also be moving that max slightly with the CPI as well, so that we don't find a problem like this. And so that those intended to be not receive or not paying taxes, but rather taking full advantage, 100% advantage of the relief, they stay in that category if we
Right.
keep this trending. So can we go back and look at what the max was back in 2007 and apply the same CPI to it and project as to what we should have the max as right now?
I can do that.
I mean,
I mean, we'll have
I
to, I
don't-
mean,
If
yeah.
I may just interrupt real quick. Wayne is on. I think he's on the computer at the hotel.
All right. Wayne, can you hear me? Wayne? Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, okay, great. All right. So Supervisor Jesse, why are you asking for approval to participate in this meeting electronically?
Well, because I had a personal a business matter that I had to take care of.
All right, thank you. The board must have a majority vote to approve Supervisor Jesse's participation in the meeting by electronic means. All those in favor of allowing Supervisor Jesse to participate by electronic means, we need a roll call.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Coons,
I,
Mr. Kimbrough.
Aye. Motion carries. Let the minutes reflect the reason for Supervisor Jesse's participation by electronic means and his location of attendance with specifics, which I think is known by you. He's somewhere at a hotel.
I don't have that, but I will get that.
Okay. Thank you, and glad you could join us, Wayne. Right, we were John, you were just talking.
Yeah, I was just asking if we could, we're deciding on what to move this cap to, and you and I had a conversation sort of explaining or discussing this very concept. And the idea in my mind, now that I understand it, is there is good reason to move the cap up. And it's basically to address these people that are coming in now with $8 and $23 tax bills, where this max didn't move up with CPI as the maximum income that you need to have to qualify did. And so we have something in the ordinance here that is not a policy shift in any way. It's just cleaning up the ordinance in my mind. And to do it correctly, we should be linking to CPI this max in the same way that we make that CPI adjustment every year. So if we could go back to the 2007 number that was our max and come up with a CPI adjustment the same way we did, that would be what I would want the number to be. I just don't know what it is.
So here's a suggestion for how we deal with it. And this CPI isn't necessarily tied to real estate values, whereas the cap should be tied to real estate values. And we've got another funny thing going on, and we only reassess every 4 or 5 years instead of every year. But judging from the original starting compensation level of $25,000, that's now 36.
36,800.
Yeah,
Yes.
so that's roughly 50% increase. Well, yeah, 50% increase. So a 50% increase in the cap would be roughly commensurate with the CPI. Agree with that?
I mean, I like to do it correctly. This is good enough and I'm happy with it. So yeah. So
I mean,
750.
So that if we use CPI, that's what would be implied.
So the quicker method, and I fully subscribe and appreciate it because it cleans it up, 750 as a cap. I mean, I think that's the question. The one question is 750 and the other one is when to post it. And I would say immediately, and I'm open to hearing other people's thoughts.
I got a quick question. Just from a number standpoint, how many people were affected by the escalated values from relief?
So, I mean, technically all of them. So even though some, like John said, may not have had a bill and then all of a sudden they had an $8 bill, you still had some that were only paying $25, which might have been manageable to them. And then all of a sudden now they're paying $75. So in actuality, really all of them it hit because all of them are having to pay more unless they were one of the lucky ones whose assessed value stayed the same or went down. But pretty much you're looking at everyone has to, had to pay more. But in terms of how many were wiped out altogether that now started having to pay a bill, that I'd have to look at. But essentially everyone it affected because, like I said, like anything nowadays, you used to pay $1 for eggs. Now you're paying $3. So in the same sense, these, individuals, their bills might have only been $25 before. Now they're having to pay $75, $50, could make or break some people, So I think that's what, might also be looking at. If that answered the question.
Sort of, kind of. Would you be willing to venture a guess, or maybe your administrator could, of what the difference is if we raise this to 250?
We'll raise it by 250.
Yes.
Okay.
Excuse me.
So yes, Ms. Diggs did prepare estimates based on if you raised it to 750 or 1,000 or 1,250.
Correct.
So last year for 2022, the amount of relief that was given was $39,086, so about $39,100. If you increase it to 750, she's estimating that you would incur an additional $30,600. So a total of $69,750 that would be relieved rather than $39,000. So you'd be looking at about additional $30,000.
Great, thank you.
If I'm looking at it right, the ones that receive 100% are the ones that income is $19,000.
So yes, so if your income is less than technically 19,139, you're eligible for at least 100% of the discount, meaning 100% of the 500, not 100% of your total taxes.
So if the increase on the property of the ones that's really needed,
Mhm.
because if it at 19,000, they probably got one source of income or very little of the income they had. You know, I know we got a raise, and I understand about this CIP, you know, all this junk stuff. Everybody tell you making complicated simple. But if you got $19,000, your income haven't raised as much as your property had. You know, the average person had not raised because of the assessments we got overall. You don't wipe them out. Okay, so the ones on the bottom of the scale, you kind of like crossing out. And I really call it the living poor. This table here really driving the ones on the bottom that don't have the income. And sometimes if we make a decision based on what we're working and some of us having good retirement, then we will question it, you know, so. And who is getting all the money? Are the ones that's getting the 19,000 are really being catered more toward the ones on the bottom of the scale? Or the top of the scale, even at 20 or 40%? Because what I'm understanding here, and it really is not a question, I'm just talking, because I'm looking at reverse process altogether. And I say we get, a lot of times we get tied up in a whole lot of hoopla. And basically we try to help somebody that really needs it. Because I know people that only have one source of income, and we talking about what they can pay in the assessments, you know, was crazy. Okay. And the income, even with the relief, it's gonna go up. So we are driving the ones down that don't really have the money because the increase is not there. And I know we got to do something. Okay. And, you know, I'm for doing something, but the numbers get real interesting when we can't see all the numbers. So I'm kind of agreeing with my counterparts, but we want to do something today. We won't keep on, you know, we going to go in 4.2 and we're going to play with that and all that kind of stuff. Our idea, I think it is we're going to increase and y'all fix the blanks like y'all want to later on, because anything else is going to be prolonged or we're not going to make an agreement. But I do mean by one thing, the ones that at $19,000, if you staying in a house and your reassessment that went up $50,000, and most of them have went up more than that. There's a lot of the land that went up more than that because I got a lot of calls on it that don't even have that income as bad at making it. You know, so the people I'm talking to don't have their pockets full. $36,000 on retirement in a single house, really, it's not that bad. For some of us, it might be pretty good, but it's a right decent retirement if you're doing something else. And they get 20%, and somebody get half will get 100%, you know. So I just want to keep this thing simple now. I'm so tired of running around the barn. I just want to keep it simple. And that's all I'm trying to say. The ones that really have a problem are the ones that's on the bottom of the chart that they got to qualify for 100%. And if you really look at the 19 to 23, really, you're not doing them no big task by really putting it at 80%. You know, so the table to me, you know, it could be closed in a little bit, especially on the bottom, 23,000, 19. You know, and your retirement have increased. You get Social Security, they take it away from you another way. You know, so anyway, sure, I appreciate what y'all are doing, and I guess we're gonna go ahead and make our mind up on the amount. Was 750, you know, I said that the last time about 750, but I got, you know, who's actually going to qualify for anything more than that anyway? You know, I know you got the table and you can look at it, but when you get up there, is the top end qualifying for the money, or is the bottom end qualifying for more of the money?
It's both, and it depends on you know, their value and all of that stuff. Yeah.
All right, okay.
And I mean, I don't have those numbers to break out, you know, how many are in each bracket. I don't have that with me.
You know, hey, I understand what you're saying, and what I'm saying is that in all of what we're saying here is we're not looking at the income that the people are actually getting on retirement, and it's based on everything else that looks good. You know, we talk the game, but really, when the person really need help, we basically just, you're gonna end up selling your place if you go up because you can't pay taxes on it.
Right.
You know, so and that's the part I'm looking at. I'm just looking at it, and
Yeah, I mean, it would be at the discretion of the board if you wanted to change those brackets. I mean, they've, like I said, the original brackets from 2007 came into play. I couldn't tell you how they originally came up with those brackets, but like I said, we've adjusted them every year based on the consumer price index as is set forth in the ordinance.
Okay. Oh, thank you.
But I mean, it would be at the discretion of the board if you wanted to adjust those brackets.
I'm doing more work, get something.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate the barn and running around it, but this is important. This is something we haven't looked at in 5 years that I've been here.
Right, and I mean, it hasn't actually been looked at since 2007 when it was.
So there you
initially
go.
adopted.
And what I'm saying is, to your point, Reggie, the likelihood of us getting this back up to this audience anytime soon after we vote on it is very low. So I'd really like for us to get it done correctly,
Right.
even if it takes us another month.
Okay, so with that, I will tell you if it's not something that's voted on today, that is set to be go to public hearing
Mhm.
and set to be voted on at the same time as
So
you
it's all
adopt the
lined up.
budget, then it's going to push back either we would have to do abatements if you enacted it for this
Yep,
year,
okay.
or it's going to push back the bills going out. I
Yep,
mean,
so we
pretty
need,
much one
we
or the
need
other.
we need a decision today. And
Yeah.
I think the way Heather laid it out, and thankfully she did, she said she needs 3 items. And the maximum is currently 500. And I think what I would suggest, I would make a motion for, if that's what we need, is a maximum of 750 that memorializes the calculations Lud and I did that try to factor in CPI and get these things on the same scale. So I would move to 750. I would send a public hearing immediately. What was the third item, Heather?
The third item. Okay, so the first was 750. The second was to increase section 4-1-3 from 75,000 to 100,000. And the third is the date to send it to public hearing, which
So
is.
let me look at 413. The net combined financial worth, including equitable interest as of the 31st day of December of the immediate preceding calendar year of the owner and of the spouse of the owner, excluding the value of the dwelling and the land not exceeding 1 acre upon which it is situated, does not exceed 75,000. What makes you recommend a change there, please?
So it's my understanding that, and again, I'm not 100% sure how, but my understanding is the current practice of the commissioner's office is to use 100,000, not the 75,000. So this is more to make sure that we're matching what we're actually doing.
Right, and Heather's correct. When I spoke with her, like I said, I've been here 10 years and it's always been 100,000.
If it's okay with y'all, I'm gonna leave that alone and say I understand, and it's 100,000 now,
Yes.
and I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
Okay.
And if that gets me taken down, then so be it.
I second the motion.
All right, thank
Motion
you.
by Mr. Coons, seconded by Mr. Harris. And for general interest, I just quickly asked if a house was worth $100,000 in 2007 in the United States, what is it worth today? And the answer was 150,100. So the 50% for housing looks like on a US basis, it's relevant.
And my students would have pointed out that your computer screen says 150,109 cents. But you're right, Lud. If we're in discussion, thank you for the second. I was also going to add to that motion that this is also a time that we could address the graduated scale there on 5-1. But in the interest of time, we can just keep the motion as it is. What I was going to suggest is that we just slide down the 100, 80, 60, 40, and 20, all down one level. And so 19,140 to 23,552. Am I going the wrong direction? See, I can't do it on the fly. Yeah, so my motion's good. I have nothing else, but I still think we need to revisit that graduating scale. I don't think it does us any favors in terms of addressing needs at the 20, 40, 60, 80 level and that granular of a number. And I
right,
think it makes more of a headache for you guys to process it, but I don't want to
right.
dictate to you. I'd rather you come to us and say, if we were changing anything that would help us in terms administratively and time consumed, labor hours and all of that, that just doesn't seem like a 2023 solution that's really addressing what we're trying to do with disabled and elderly
Right.
tax relief. So you know, I think the motion's good for now, but I'd really like the Commissioner of Revenue and the Treasurer to just come together and sort of look at these ordinances and say, you know, my people have to work really hard. Great. What can we change in the ordinance to change that so that it's 2023?
Right. So you're, just to clarify, so you're thinking if their income is anywhere from 36,800 under, they would just get 750 or no, you still would want the steps. You just feel like they.
I don't know that I care about the steps.
Okay.
I care about, I'd have to see your data and how the usage is from our end users. In other words, do people, sort of what Reggie was asking, do a lot of people come in at 32 to 36,000? Do a lot of people come in at under 19?
Right,
I don't
okay.
know if we have a population that just all skirts right up to a certain limit and then we have a huge bubble.
Right.
I should know that. I don't.
Okay.
But I think if we
Alright.
could see how it's fitting into that, if we could see the data and how it fits into the ordinance, we could revisit the ordinance in a little more totality with your office, and we could get your consult on, hey, how could we make this more efficient for the citizen, for the office, and still maintain what the desire of the original ordinance was, which was to get relief to the disabled and the elderly
Right.
in the context of what today's dollars are worth, in the
Mhm.
context of our assets, et cetera. So that's it. I'll be quiet.
Anybody else allowed to say anything or y'all?
We're
Talking
still in discussion.
All right,
Go
okay,
ahead,
you know,
Robbie.
well, you know, when I brought it up that the elderly needed, you know, they needed more. And to me, when we don't look at income and we're looking at all values, it really don't make a difference, because if you don't have the money to pay for something, you can't buy it.
Mhm.
And it seems like we're looking the other way. I know we got to do it something. And what I'm seeing here now is it seems like we like to call things by big names. I'm finding that out everything, and I'm a simple guy. And we're gonna do something today, because I'm gonna agree with doing something. I can't vote for nothing, but it should be more than what it is. But we should have a little bit more data. But this thing here, we can change it. If we make a mistake, we're not gonna. I don't care who said it. We're gonna try to get it as close as we can to right. We're not gonna get it right. We probably won't get it within 60% of right. So we don't need to delay anything. We need to do something, and if it's wrong, we have to change it later on.
I would just add, we need to take action, because they're sort of holding the presses to be able to get a public announcement, and we need to get this to them ASAP. So
Mhm.
Wayne, if you have any comments, I would love to hear your comments. Otherwise, I'm hoping we can move to a roll call vote.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, no, I've been listening to everything and what's going on. Yeah, we have to do something for the elderly and also for the disabled, you know, and I definitely agree on that. And we have to go to a public hand. It's just that you gotta, I know someone said, I guess John said it was 750.
Yes,
That's
sir.
right.
Yeah, is that what you voting on? Well, yeah, you made the motion on that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, and I can live with that. Whatever we can do to help out the elderly and the disabled, I'm all in favor for it.
Very good. Then may we have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Jesse,
Yes.
Mr. Kuntz,
Aye.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Kimbrough.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you, everybody. And
One
Heather,
last
do you
thing.
have what you need to communicate with the newspaper to get the public announcement out?
Yes, sir. And then I need a consensus that this matter is being sent to public hearing on, I believe we said, to get the correct date, April 20th at 7 p.m. Is that the will of the board?
Yes,
I'll
all heads
take-
nodding, yes.
I'll
And for
take
those,
verbal.
for those of you who may not understand why we're in a rush for this, the timeline is such that we have to have for public hearing 2 successive weeks in the newspaper before the public hearing. And we need to get the public hearing and the approval in a timeline that the commissioner's office can get the bills out in a timely fashion. And if we miss this deadline, then it's going to cascade into a real problem.
Yes.
Just
Tracy might
logistically.
be mad.
Yeah.
So yeah, if that can get done, that would be great.
Thank you, Carrie.
All right.
And
Appreciate
just,
your help.
if you'd like, I'd be happy to take a call from anybody in your office and set up a meeting and we could go over with the data and the statistics and I'll help craft a proposal that we can bring back to the board that says, hey, we could do better than this. But for right now, we got it
Right.
done and thank you for all your work to get us here.
Yep, and I was gonna say if you just, let us know what specific data you're looking for, like you said. I know you said in each bracket how
Yep.
many, but just get with us and we'll be happy to provide it.
It's
Anytime.
basically that, where do they hit the brackets historically, last year, the year before, give me the
Mhm.
context as many years back as you can. If you send me that in an email, I can work up and say, hey, and I can take it right here, I can take it back to you and you can bring it back to the board either way. But I think there's more work to do, to Reggie's point, if
Mhm.
we're gonna make it targeted in the way that it was initially intended. And I think it's just a matter of spending some time with the numbers and then presenting it back here and we can do that a lot quicker next time.
Is there a timeline you're looking at
I got 3
Just
years,
before
I got
next
2.5 years left in office.
before next year? Okay, that's fine. And, just for the members of the public, if any of them have questions about the program itself and whether they feel like they might qualify, just contact our office. and
Always,
we'll be
yes,
happy to-
perfect.
Happy to
perfect.
help.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Carrie. All right, next we have VDOT report only on pages 53 through 55 of your packets. And then school matters. Dr. Seitz, see you here. Thank you for attending. Always a pleasure.
Good afternoon. Let's see, we have one budget supplement request in your packet. The insurance recovery is for a tree that fell on a fence at Middlesex High School that we had to have repaired. And then the other items are all related to our nutrition program. Just as a reminder that is the food service is a separate account. It's a true cash account. And all of those funds that we're asking for to be appropriated there are in that fund. I can answer any questions about those.
Any questions? Wayne, any questions or comments?
None at this time.
We'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve budget supplement request FY 2023-34.
Second.
By Mr. Coons, second by Mr. Harris. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Jesse,
Aye.
Mr. Kuntz,
Aye.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay. I also brought, and I'll leave these with Anne Marie, and I would like you all to have one. It's just a trifold of our strategic plan that we approved for 23-29, highlights our mission, vision, priorities and core values. So I'll give those to her. And if I think there's leftovers. So if there's anywhere they can. Please.
We'll do that.
You want more? We have more. So any other questions about anything?
There will be up in a few minutes is the high school building committee assignment discussion, if you were going to stay for that.
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Well, the next agenda item, social services, is report only on pages 57 through 58. If there's no comment on that, then we can just move right into the high school building committee assignment discussion.
Would you like me to start?
That'd be great.
Kind of kick this off. Okay.
Sure.
At the last school board finance committee meeting, there was a discussion of concern about the need for direction related to the new high school building. The school representatives indicated they were not sure where to head next without direction from the Board of Supervisors. The committee and the attendees, in that case, you may want to correct me if I'm wrong, but it was Dana Burnett, Tracy Seitz, Byron Bishop, Garland Harrow, Karen Murray, Lud Kimbrough, John Kuntz, Matt Walker, and me, thought it was be good. It might be the time to recommend a high school building committee that would meet and come up with a workable plan and direction for the high school. We originally, I guess, all were thinking that the members of the finance committee would work, but they also thought the Board of Supervisors may want to instead pick a different set of people to be on this building committee, if not Mr. Kuntz and Mr. Kimbrough. As a reminder, the assignment to the school finance committee was made in January. So that, again, you may want to just reassign, or you may want to have a separate committee. Side note, Mr. Jesse had been named in January to the high school renovation project committee, but I don't know, I don't have any other information on that. So the purpose of the request today, and any of you may want to jump in, is to determine who should be meeting with this committee to move the high school reconstruction program forward. It could be the same as the finance committee, just to reduce the number of separate meetings you have to attend. Then maybe you just want to reassign who is actually assigned to the finance committee meeting. At this point, I can let either Dr. Seitz or Matt, Mr. Kimbrough or Mr. Kuntz take over from here. Yeah, I got them all right.
I'll be glad to chip in my thoughts on this. We are honored to have 2 graduates of Middlesex High School on the board, and a parent of Middlesex High School students on the board. My feeling is that this committee should be comprised of 2 out of those 3, and I think it would be elegant to have Mr. Jesse as an alumnus and Mr. Kuntz as a parent. And I'd appreciate it if you guys would let me know, is that something that you're willing and interested in doing?
Mr. Chair, yeah, yes, I would be more interested in being on that committee for the high school.
And I'm happy to do it as well if that spot is available.
Great. Thank you. And Mr. Williams will continue to be involved in the school on a daily basis. So sure, we will benefit greatly from your input as well. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else from me?
I got one thing, since we're talking about that. Are we actually looking at costs and what best for the county in the direction that we are going in? I mean, you know, right now we are talking about getting a committee together, I guess, to renovate the high school.
So
Some type of renovation. And it seems like it seems like a lot of people is focused on, they're not looking at costs to the county at all. And this is the way I see it. Just me. I guess it's just me, but I think there's a whole lot of other people saying the same thing. I'm looking at costs, and I'm looking at something that can represent Middlesex County. And our focus have stayed on some type of renovation for the high school. And then we'll just put money in there, and we put money in it when we're not looking at options. And for instance, even when we did meet, the only options that we were given was 40, 30, 20. That's not an option because we don't know what the other option is. And also the $350,000 on a renovation versus doing something different. Nobody have discussed that option yet. It seems like we are so hard that we got to do it over here, regardless of what cost to the county is going to be. And my focus is going to be always on the taxpayer and what's good for Middlesex County. It's not going to be a scenario that I'm in love with something so much that I can't change, you know, and that's my focus. And I think when it come out in when you really start looking at it, the longer we wait down, the cost is going to go up for whatever we're going to do if we can afford to do it. And we are playing with ourselves on this. This ain't about the renovation. This is about something that I don't know exactly what it's about. But and besides, and like I always told you, I always said, you know, and that's where I feel. But so when we're pointing people to a board, if they have an honest direction, because if all of them is focused on doing only one thing, they're not giving the county another option or the taxpayer another option based on what we need to do for Middlesex County. And like Brother Robert was saying, why are they doing stuff so much different than what we are doing in Middlesex when it seems like everything is going another way? We think water and sewer would help. We had places talking about buying land, okay, to make a bigger area. And the first question, when you ask somebody, which they have changed yet, is why you can't build a new school. You know what that answer was? For 6 months, maybe a year, because we had spent money in a complex. And I've heard that so much that we not even consider the students and what the student want. And also we are willing to do a renovation. And we already had 2.5 years in the pandemic, which students have lost. We are willing to separate now. It's saying, let's go ahead and tear the high school up and make them same kids wait 2.5 years to run around and trailers and everything else until we get something we want based on a warrant and see what's best for the county. Now, I'm not saying I'm 100% right. I'm saying I would like to look at the numbers when you get it all down. And once the numbers get right, we can talk much as we want to talk. But right now, we don't even have a number to look at. Only number we have now is renovation, buying more land, keep everything in the matchbox, and hope everybody's happy. And we're not thinking about the future. This is not thinking about the future. The future where we will change the way we're doing in the direction we are going. And sometimes when we consume a place that we're in and who is coming a person's new to a position, so whoever's behind them pushes their idea and their idea comes out front, because there's no way in the world that we could sit there with all these committees that we are doing and we get all these yes people that go along with us when we're not doing exact cost estimation on what we need to do for the county and to save taxes. I haven't heard that one time in no meeting yet. And I haven't heard it. I'm not saying nothing to you, but you know what I think anyway. But I just had to let that go. I've been thinking about it too long.
Well, and I'm glad you did. Probably more to your point is the reason that we are creating a committee is, and first of all, it's not a decision-making body. It really is to gather more information. And that's what we were able to discuss more in the finance committee. And please chime in if there's anything else to add for those who were there, is that we recognized, the school board wanted an answer on, can we move forward? If so, how much? And the Board of Supervisors, very much and rightly so, did not have enough information to say, yes, we're ready to move forward, or we are in a position to move forward from the renovation. But everybody recognized, at least in the finance committee, that it's definitely a project that needs to be discussed in more detail, not just between our boards, but there's more information that needs to go out to our community so that everybody's making an informed decision. And so that's what led to the creation of a smaller committee that could meet 2 from each board and Mr. Walker and Anne Marie also, and then some on our end, including the engineer. We also talked about Mr. Beam, the engineer for the county, to be in those discussions with the Mosley architects who developed the master plan. That is simple. And that plan was only just ideas of what could be done at Middlesex High School. It is not a definite of any, you have to choose option 1, 2, or 3. Those were just, we asked them to give us a small number of options just because of the time it took to create those. And we didn't want them coming at us with 10 different options. But it also means that we can, and having further discussions with them, we can get a little bit more specific about where we want to go and what costs could be once the county determines they're at a point to move forward with this project. So that's kind of a highlight of how the committee got started, which I think answers some of your questions and addresses what you're pointing out also is there's still a lot of information to be had.
And if I may, I'll elaborate a little bit because I think we have not much, but we have some billable hours left with Mosley. And we had a pretty robust discussion at the committee meeting about that. And maybe there's the potential that, okay, as Dr. Seitz has said, we don't just fixate on the 3 apparent options that have been developed so far. Maybe we, I'll say what I said in the committee meeting, maybe we measure twice and cut once. So maybe even if we need to spend a little bit more money with Mosley to come up with a robust set of options, we spend a little bit more time on that and, get our money's worth of our architect's time, but also develop, a good robust list of options and make sure that we're looking at all the opportunities that may be available. So that was discussed. And I think that's the purpose of the committee too,
Yes.
to work with the architect to give them some feedback along those lines.
I'll say
You're welcome.
it was tremendously impactful for you to tour the existing facility because I think everybody agrees with me. Something needs to be done.
Right. That can
Sure
be
the
one of the
committee will come up with
discussions.
a good answer.
All right.
Thank you, Dr.
All right. Thank you all.
Right. Anne Marie, would you give us an update on the Keep Middlesex Beautiful Committee? I think a lot going on there. Is that right?
I was really excited. I wanted to let you know how much your KMB committee has accomplished since they started, since they became active. I think just late last year. As a reminder, it's primarily Tripp Phillips, Aaron McFarland, John Coons, Joan Armstrong Harris, who have taken the leadership on this committee. First, as you can see in the screen, the committee has developed this awesome new logo that represents the facets of Middlesex, including green to represent the land for farming, sand color to represent the waterfront, and blue for the water, plus of course the sun and the boating. Second, the KMB also has, they have an active, it's not active on the screen, but they have an active Facebook page. They only got 156 followers right now, but they are growing. They post reminders on this page about letter beautification, plus information about their ongoing opportunities. Now the big one. Oh, here we go. So the little project right now is a great Middlesex Green Room. Through this project, the committee is soliciting residents to register to claim a portion or a section of your favorite roadway in Middlesex County between now and May 20th. They work with corporate partners to distribute litter collection kits. Community partners are the Deltaville Yacht Club and the Tupelo Farm and Garden. Right now, the Kiwanis, led by Bob Winslow, have already opted for one roadway. A group of volunteers led by Tom Matthew is also adopted a portion for this big project. There are 9 groups overall, featuring 85 participants and 30 miles of roadways that are signing up for this great Middlesex Green Room. Even your administrative seat on the second floor, that we need Tammy Lynn, Deborah, Shane. We'll be doing our part as we take down the 4 corners here around the courthouse. So we've signed up to do our part. The group has also, I want to show.
Sorry,
this.
is your mic on?
Oh, you've missed me all. You've missed it all.
No, we heard you.
Okay, because I'm loud. I can't help it. I am loud. I am very loud about this because it's very exciting. Also, you can see that this is the cleanup flyer for Tom Maffey, who's doing it over in Urbana. And finally, this is just a photo of what they're distributing for the cleanup kits. So if you do sign up right now to do a cleanup in your favorite street, you get the bag, the grabber, plus I think a vest and gloves. So it is a very exciting opportunity to help make Middlesex beautiful. I think that's all I had to say about that. They've created a press release, a PowerPoint, plus of course the flyers. I think that's all I have to say, except for in summary, there is no action required by the board today, but I wanted you to be aware of the efforts of a community of volunteers that are actually struggling to make a difference in this community. And I knew you'd be impressed with what your committee has done. I do have copies of the flyers with me. That's all.
And I would just add, if people want to get involved and sign up, they simply have to go to keepmiddlesexbeautiful@gmail.com and let them know that they're interested. Is that the best way to sign up?
That is, it is on this flyer. You can see it. If I could make it bigger, I would, but I don't have access to it from here. But you can see it's on this flyer, keepmiddlesexbeautiful@gmail.com.
And it's supported, we're linking up with the state foundations that do similar things. And I don't know if foundation's the right word, but there's a Virginia equivalent. There's other counties that do things like this. We're kind of catching up, but we're running past a lot of other counties in our efforts. And we're hoping it grows organically in the sense that we all see the trash. We see it every winter. And the only negative feedback that I've seen on social media has really been questions about why we aren't using our road crews from the jails. And so, I'm happy to talk with anybody about that. But the reality of that is I'm on the jail board and we've looked at it every single year. We've looked at it quarterly. Many of the inmates don't want to participate in these programs, and we don't pay them very much by design. And the reality is to pay for a supervisor and all of the ancillary equipment and everything, the financials don't make sense. It's cheaper for us to subcontract. Right now, we revisit it every time we can. If anything changes, we'll go back to that. That was something I always wanted to use, but it's just not been available. But the bigger point is this is an opportunity for everybody to participate instead of just point it out. We can all go clean it up together, and that saves you, the taxpayers, money either way, whether it's the jail inmates that are cleaning up or paid contractors. Our choice is to either stop throwing stuff out the window, secure our loads coming in and out of our dump stations, or clean it up or pay somebody to clean it up. So we're giving you all the options.
And John, if I may just elaborate briefly on that, I've had people ask me the question why we can't make the inmates do that. I think it's illegal for us to make them participate in programs like that, if my understanding is correct.
I'm going to let Heather Lewis handle that one.
Okay, she may not be prepared to tonight, but I don't think it's a situation where you can make them do it. I think you can court order community service, but once you're sentenced to jail, that's it. You're serving your time.
Well, and as somebody who's been teaching in slightly lower grades than the jails, when you make people do things, they don't do a very good job, and you end up cleaning them up twice and 3 times and 4 times. So even if there were chain gangs, you have to really carry shotguns and all kinds of stuff. And it's just not where we're heading, I think, as a society. So hopefully not.
Great grassroots project there. It's wonderful that people have taken the ball and really making that happen.
Are you driving?
I won't try.
Okay.
All right, next on the agenda, we have the county engineer update, but don't see Charlie here. Is he?
I noticed that he was trying to pop on and off, that he must be. I can briefly cover it.
Okay,
Matt, your mic is off.
Thank you. I was just saying, Charlie's at home with a wife that's ill. I could cover his report for him. I noticed he was popping on and off, but evidently he's having some kind of difficulty. So I think I can cover his report for him. I'm happy to report that the county was successful in receiving an SCS grant from DEQ, an amount of $800,000 for the Saluda sewer system. This is one of the many grants that we put forward, asking for funding for the various different sewer systems, Deltaville, Hartfield, Topping, Saluda, of course, and like I'm missing one, Saluda, Hartfield, Topping, Deltaville. Oh, and we also have submitted an SLPP grant, which is a sewer septic system partners program or something to that effect. It's a similar type grant program that DEQ is offering. They have not determined whether or not we're going to receive that reward or award yet. They were still deliberating that as of today. And next, we have received a draft notice of violation on our landfill from DEQ. The notice of violation addresses reporting requirements that were not met, reporting deadlines that were not met by our consultant. The consultant is working through that. We've asked for an extension for our review date for that notice of violation to allow the consultant some time to check their records. There are several indications where they missed a deadline that they believe they did not. And DEQ has granted that extension till I think May 1st. We'll have more to report on the potential letter or notice of violation at the May meeting. We're working with a consultant to address DEQ's concerns. I see a question coming.
Yeah, is the consultant like alarmed? Does this happen all the time? Or like, can you give a little more color as to are we in jeopardy? Are we at risk? Or is this something that's going to get cleared up and we move on and don't think about it?
I think it's I think it's at least partially going to be cleared up. I think there's been some breakdown in communication between the consultant and DEQ. And of course, we are the owner. So the notice of violation would be addressed to us. However, the consultant has assured us that he is covering, or they are covering, the cost of any fine that the county would receive.
Is that in writing? Is that in the contract? Is that?
Well, not in writing, but on multiple conference calls on the matter, we have assurance that they are going to cover that fine.
Have we gone back to the contract to see if contractually obligated to cover any such fine? Because
I have
right
not.
now we have open exposure.
Yeah,
In
I have
my
not.
mind, I don't-
We
I
can
don't
do
know
that during the
landfills.
review period.
Would you mind looking back into
Absolutely.
that? Just because to me, I'm not a landfill expert. Nobody expects me to be, but
Right.
I know that if we're in violation and we're paying a consultant and the consultant's not even here talking to me, it's probably not a big deal. But I don't
The
feel like I can go to
consultant, yeah,
sleep on that.
The consultant will be here to talk to you in May. That was something that we've already ironed out.
Make sure they're ready.
I think they will be. I think they were, I think we were all surprised with the notice of violation because it was rather abrupt. We had a meeting and the consultant had a meeting with DEQ back in December, I believe was the last meeting, and a very robust, that's going to be the word of my night, meeting in October with a DEQ on the matter, and had no indication that there were concerns.
So just to put a fine point on it, we're going to hear from them in May. We're not
Absolutely.
really exposed in this next 25, 30 days.
No.
And when they come in here, they've assured you that they're going to pay any fines if there are any.
Several
at
times.
the end,
I've been on the phone with the vice president of the company.
But between now and May, you're going to take a look at the contract that we have with this consultant and maybe just double check if there's anything that compels them to pay that fine beyond their good word.
Sure,
Thanks.
absolutely. We can look at that.
Mr. Walker, would you just enlighten me a little bit because and it's been months ago that we talked about trying to get from underneath the situation for the constant monitoring of that facility. And could you just educate us again about what's the prospective due date for being done, or is there?
There is not.
Okay, great.
That was an easy one. Just a little bit of context for the public here tonight. The county closed the landfill like many localities across the Commonwealth, I think prior to 1995. And some of those closings, unless I'm mistaken, were at the urgings of DEQ because the regulations were changing. And at that time, unless I'm mistaken, DEQ directed a lot of localities, go ahead and close your landfills because you don't want to have to abide by these. Several years went by and then all of a sudden, I guess there was a change of thought at DEQ and said, oh, even if you close the landfill, you still got to do gas monitoring and groundwater monitoring, which are not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, there are some landfills that are worse than others. Ours is largely a residential waste landfill. I will let the consultant talk to you more about the nature of our waste in Middlesex, but we're not a heavy industrialized area other than our marinas and some of the boat works we have. Largely it's residential and agricultural waste. Having said all that, I don't think anyone's optimistic that given our current monitoring without installing more wells and different things of that nature, that we're going to be out from under the requirements. In fact, one of the things we had talked with a consultant about is the need for installing new monitoring wells that may actually have better results because they're a little further away from the waste. In order to do that, we may have to acquire property from adjoining property owners, and that heretofore has not been something desirable by those property owners. So we're in gas monitoring and groundwater monitoring.
And is there any particular time frame from DEQ of when that monitoring would possibly stop? Is it 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, or it's as long as we live?
There is not.
Okay.
I've got a personal opinion that I'll share with you later. It
Okay.
seems like the requirements get more stringent, not less.
Okay.
Just last point, Matt, and thank you for covering for Charlie here.
Right.
This is a lot of engineering stuff, but I guess my question is, if we did pursue those neighboring homeowners, do we have to acquire the land? Couldn't we get an easement of some sort to go and put?
We've
You've looked
talked
at
about
that as
several
well.
options.
You've looked
Yes,
at
sir.
that as well. Okay, that's all I had. Thanks.
Yep. Oh, it's a very good question. And one of the things I'm going to ask the consultant to talk to the board about is, well, they were due anyway for an update on the landfill. We try to at least get one a year. And we'd rather it be under better circumstances, but they'll be here in May. Yep. And the only other thing I would add to that, and I made a note to add whether Charlie was here or not, we covered this in a work session during the budget, but I want to make sure it's covered again tonight. We were not awarded our $11 million in direct, under direct funding from ARPA monies through DEQ. We had a budget amendment that was in the House bill for $11 million. It did not survive crossover, whatever the term is, so it was not in the finalized budget that's still being debated at the state. And there doesn't seem to be much chance that it will be added back. It was an amendment that was not accepted by the Senate, it's my understanding. So that money is off the table for at least another year. I met briefly, just on happenstance, with Keith Hodges briefly about it the other day when he was here at the office. And we're going to try again next year. It's just you got to keep plugging away and you got to put in the time. So we're going to try to do that. We thought we had done pretty much everything we needed to do. And I think we did. I think it's just not the year for it. I don't know. Keith will explain. I think he's looking to come to a board meeting, probably not in May, but probably in June.
Be interesting if you, maybe from your office, I may reach out as a citizen, but it sounds like the House of Delegates did their part again, and we have a good relationship with Keith. I know there's been redistricting, but do we have a relationship with our senator?
I have not heard from our senator on the matter.
Might we
I
reach
gave
out to him under your
Now, our
letter?
new senator, I think is Mr. Stewart. Is that correct?
Might be a good opportunity to just let them know we're coming in hot for next session. And if you're on board
I will
with us,
try to
we'd
make
like
some
to,
contact
I
with
mean,
our
you know
new
what we're
incoming
talking about here. Let's
But I
let
have
them know.
tried our current senator. I've tried a couple of times and I haven't heard back.
Well, the
Other than maybe from his aide,
outgoing
I
ones
should
are
say,
always
to be
easier to
fair.
deal with.
I'm sorry.
The outgoing ones are always easier to deal with. You don't have to call them. They're outgoing.
Okay, that's the one I was trying to get in touch with and couldn't, but
Maybe
that's
the
okay.
new one for next year would be, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
let's get a relationship with the new one and, like we have with Keith, we have a great relationship with Keith. We should have the same in the Senate if we can.
We sure should. And I think that's all I had, Mr. Chairman. Just wanted to make sure. Yeah, I had one other item, as a matter of fact. Now, since we got the SES grant for Saluda, which is sewer system deployment, I believe it is. It stands for something like that. I don't have the acronyms in front of me. I was hoping Charlie would have that. But because we have that grant for 800,000, that's roughly about half of the projected construction cost for the system. We have directed the engineer to pivot slightly his time and attention to make sure we can put resources onto that system, get the necessary engineering done and in place before our deadline to expend those funds passes. I think we're under the impression, and I think I think Charlie and Ken did some checking on this, but I think we have to expend those funds by December 2026. So we need to have those plans done, out to bid, ready to go. So the Saluda sewer system has now become a priority, and I've made it such for the engineering staff and our consultant engineer for obvious reasons. And I think that's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Thank you.
I just looked up. I think Charlie has joined us. Charlie, if you're there, and if you have anything to add. Maybe you have a computer difficulty.
Okay,
Yes, I'm here. I apologize for being late. I had to find my unmute button.
Charlie, have you got anything to add to Matt's report?
Not at this time. Again, I apologize for not being available. I think Matt touched all the bases on that. We did get Timmins moving forward with Saluda. That's now become the priority in addition to Deltaville Phase 1, 2, and 3. But yeah, we're going to move forward with that one first.
Great, thank you. All right, next up, we have citizen appointments on pages 59 through 60 in your packet. Anne Marie, anything to
There is no
be done
action.
there?
Nope, there's no action required because we have no applications to approve today.
Some of us need to reach out and see if we can find some committee members. I know we need a Board of Zoning Appeals member from my district, for example. Okay, Anne Marie, you have 3 budget supplement requests.
Right, starting with 202331. This is a request for previously approved but not appropriated ARPA money for the broadband expansion project with VADI and All Points. This addresses their first request for funding. I don't expect we'll need any more this fiscal year, but I will probably start requesting it next fiscal year for additional funds. For 496,604,000 out of ARPA funds.
Is this the wrap up of the broadband?
No, this is the beginning of the next one. So it's the beginning. Well, I guess in the great scheme of things, that is the wrap up, isn't it?
This is still part of the 1 whatever the number was, 1.2 million that we initially did with broadband, or whatever the number was.
Right, 800,000 from ARPA plus $1.2 million from general fund monies is what we discussed and approved, but we never appropriated it because I didn't know when we'd need it. So this is the first drawdown of that funds. And my recommendation is, of course, we use ARPA funds first.
I'll make the motion to approve the budget supplement request 2023-31.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Harris, second by Mr. Williams. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Coons?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Jesse?
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough?
Aye. Motion carries. Next is the 2023-32, Emery.
In 2021, Middlesex County entered into an agreement with Delaware Corporation to conduct a runway alignment project. Section 2 of that agreement states that the county will pay Delcorp any grant funds awarded to the county. On March 13th, the county received $1,008,240.44 from the Virginia Department of Aviation after the official request was submitted by County Engineer Charlie Beam. Therefore, we had 30 days from the receipt of that money to turn it over to Delcorp. Ergo, we're looking for an appropriation of $1,008,240.44 from the airport alignment grant to obviously pay for work carried out by Delcorp.
And is that amount less the amount that we had for landscaping at Mr. Perkins? And I think lights was another issue that we voted on at the last meeting.
If Charlie is here, Charlie could probably answer that question. Charlie's the one that submitted it. Are you on?
Yes, yes. Don, this invoice was actually for $1,400,000. The state took out, they did the 80-20 split. So the $1,008,240 is what the state has allotted to pay Delcorp. The lights are not part of this, as that is a separate contract and the lights have not been delivered. They're due in I want to say probably by the middle or end of this month, and they should be installed and operational by mid-June of this year. That would be a separate invoice.
Okay, I get that. Where does the buffer plantings at Mr. Perkins' property, is that coming out of this 1,008,240, or is that coming out of something different?
No, sir. The planting plan is part of this submission in this invoice.
Of this 1,008,240?
Yes, sir.
So my question is, the request is for work carried out by Delcorp. Are we going to just reduce that amount that we turn over to Delcorp, or how is that transaction going to take place?
No, sir. Basically what's happened is Del Corp has agreed to fund the additional 20% on behalf of the county. So basically what they receive from what we as the county receive from the state goes directly to Del Corp. And then the 20% that the county would fund is being absorbed by Del Corp.
Okay,
If I-
thank you.
If I may, Don, I think what you're talking about is where there was an overage that we agreed to cover,
Yes. Mhm.
right? And that is separate in the sense that this whole grant was agreed at 80-20 with the state. So this is just passing that money back through, and our opportunity to sort of hold Oscar's feet to the fire on that has passed. This is just pass through that is already written in stone. We're just, that was the deal. We only put up 20, they put up 80. Everything else we've worked out on the side. So this is just the government saying, here's the money now, and 80 goes here, 20 goes there. It's kind of a done deal.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question when appropriate.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Charlie, I just want to have clarification on this because I wonder if Supervisor Harris and I are thinking the same thing. The board previously voted to amend the contract, which required Mr. Barber not to install the landscaping plan. That was something the county was going to be financially responsible for. And in addition to that easement, are you saying that this money, and are we now giving Mr. Barber the money for the county installing the landscaping at their expense?
We are not. It was my understanding, and of course, I'll go back and check that was all inclusive as part of the project. Just like DEQ and the best management practices plan, DEQ would not close out the permit until we had a BMP in place. We've since done that, so now they can lift that or close that permit, but Oscar's still obligated to go back, fill in the low spots, reseed, make sure that we've got a good stand of grass for this coming season. Same with the planting. It's my understanding that Oscar said, yes, I'm absorbing that 20%. That 20% covers the planting plan. Anything else we need to do as far as for DEQ. But I can certainly go back and verify that.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I'm not trying to make this complicated or delay this, but I think my only point is that the contract requires us to give to Mr. Oscar. We amended the contract, and the county agreed to be financially responsible for two things that Mr. Barber was originally responsible for. But he then was not to receive those reimbursements from the state for those two items. We are. So my only point to that question is the money we're giving Mr. Barber the money that he's owed, not money that's owed to the county for the work that the county did as an amendment to the contract.
I understand what you're saying now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I'll go back and double check that. We don't want to pay him for landscaping if the county was responsible and should be recoup that cost.
Yes, sir. That's exactly, because that was part of the agreement that we made with Mr. Barber, is that, excuse me, not with the board made with Mr. Barber. Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
And thank you, Heather, for cleaning that up for me. That's exactly what I was asking, in that I don't want to fight later on that's generated by, oh, y'all are responsible for this, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then stones start to be thrown.
All right, I'll admit now I'm confused. $1.8 million is 80% of some amount greater than that. Is that correct? Charlie?
That is
Like
correct.
80, and then so there's a 20% that the county came up with in the original contract. And so there were contract change orders that we agreed to that maybe changed the total project amount, I think is what Heather's saying. And where we agreed to take on some of the scope that was Del Corp's responsibility. I guess what you're saying is that total 100% number changed downward, or it changed from 80-20 once we moved our change order from his scope to our scope. So I'm now in a place where I don't think you can change this number, but if we can, I'm all for it. But I think you would be stirring Del Corp significantly, because the last action I recall, we took on that scope and we ate that. I don't recall us saying that somehow the state was going to come in and take care of us. So I'm confused now.
Charlie and Matt, I'd like some further clarity because this number came in, these funds were received from the state at least 2 weeks ago. And I thought there were meetings held with Mr. Barber and our attorney and his attorney in order to perform the due diligence, in order to understand whether this was truly the amount that he should be reimbursed.
That's my understanding as well. Charlie, you want to elaborate on Mark and your meetings with Oscar? And
Yeah.
one of the things that I guess may shed some clarity on this is I think the state held back a good chunk of money. Is that not
They
correct,
did.
Charlie?
That's
So
correct.
That
Mark
would be
Flynn
the
and I,
money that the county maybe do for what we performed on behalf of, I guess.
What is our urgency in getting this done as opposed to May? Because I don't feel like I have the information in front of me to make a decision. Is there urgency in this
Yes.
having to be done right now? What is
Yes.
that urgency?
The contract itself is very clear, and so was Mark Flynn. Mark Flynn is the name of the attorney that's working for the county on this. And he said definitely all the money that was received was owed to Delcorp. And the contract is also very clear that we had 30 days within receipt of those funds to pay it. So those were two very specifics that led me to, are you sure the number is 1 million?
Which is what I'm saying as well, Anne Marie. I don't think we get to change this at this last hour.
That is
This is a number where we have a contractual obligation. The meeting we had months ago where we all agreed, I don't think I agreed to it, but we said, we're going to go ahead and take on additional scope that was Oscar's. We decided to eat that at that moment.
And if I can elaborate that, Anne Marie was quick to the button. But Charlie, the state held back how much money?
the original invoice was for $1,487,000 and they appropriated $1,008,240. So about $400,000, a little over 400,000.
So it's my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, Charlie, because you've been more on top of this with Mark Flynn than I have. But the amount of work that the county had to do on behalf of Del Wall Corp, based on our agreement, that reimbursement would still be forthcoming from the state. Is that correct?
That is correct. And we're still investigating whether or not we will, if we are entitled to the monies that we expended for the easements.
And so with that, this document states exactly where we are. We can't move $1,008,240, that 44, that total is there, and we contractually are bound to pay it at this point. We don't have a dispute with Delcorp. Our lawyer has met with our engineer and Delcorp and agreed that this is the money that we have to pass through from the state. The decisions we made about side scope or additional scope or change orders are in our past and they've already been made. We need to approve this.
I'm going to add one other comment. It's my understanding the county will get reimbursed to the tune of 80/20 on the money we've expended. That's some of the money that's been withheld by the state. That's my understanding.
Right, for the obligations that we agreed to take on ourselves. Correct. So I will entertain a motion for budget supplement request form 2023-32.
I move that we appropriate the funds.
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Mr. Coons, second by Mr. Williams. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Jesse,
Aye.
Mr. Coons,
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I'd like to ask Charlie, could you clean this up for us a little bit and give us, a spreadsheet that shows what the original contract was, what the original split was, the additional scope, how we decided and when we decided that we would move it over to our scope, and what is still pending with the state in terms of them compensating us 80% for that? Can you give us a better story than this one page did for us today?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right, final budget supplement request is 2023-33. Anne Marie.
Not the final. Yeah, there's more. So this is simply an appropriation of the 4 for Life funds. 4 for Life program stipulates that $4 additional are charged and collected at the time of each registration of passenger vehicles. Middlesex County, upon receipt of that, has traditionally distributed these funds to the Volunteer Rescue Squad. Usually we get these in December. And there was a glitch in their program that did not distribute it until last week or week before last. So at this time, we'd like to immediately try to pay this 4 for Life grant over to the rescue squad.
I move that we appropriate the funds to 4 for Life funds.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Coons, second by Mr. Harris. Any discussion?
Just real quick, I'm sorry to have always something to say, but I'd like to know from the treasurer's office if they could just let us know if such glitches are, often happening, or if there's some way to know why we didn't know about that money. And I'm sure there's a really good explanation.
That was me, actually. I didn't know how to access it. So I did not know there was a glitch. I kept waiting. This was something Betty had done for years and years, and
Perfect.
I kept waiting for the money.
Good enough.
And finally contacted them and they said, oh, there it is.
Is it worth maybe just another scrub with Betty to see if there's any other little gems out there? Or do you think it's just going to happen like
They
this?
actually, the state took the responsibility.
They did.
They did. They said that they had a change in personnel. So regardless of what I was doing, because I was asking for the money.
Very good.
So they did take responsibility, but that was all,
Perfect.
the treasurer had nothing to do with it on that one.
Perfect. Thanks, Anne Marie.
Did we get a motion? Did we vote? I didn't have a vote on this. The 4 for Life funds. I had a first by Mr. Kuntz,
Motion by Mr. Coons and was seconded by
Mr. Harris.
by Mr. Harris. Roll call, please.
Thank you. Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Jesse,
Aye.
Mr. Kuntz.
Aye.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough.
Aye.
Thank you.
You can keep going, Anne Marie.
Yeah, the next item. We actually have the Virginia Department of Health is here. Brendan Rivenbark is here. What he has in front of us today is 2 things. We got.
Anne Marie, I'm sorry. I think we lost your mic.
Sorry. I hit that. Mr. Rivenbark is here. To represent the Virginia Department of Health, Three Rivers Health District. We have a contract that is normally completed sooner than what we've got. And again, I think I'm not sure why we didn't pursue this any further, but there's 2 parts to this. The first is the resolution for an agreement between the county and the Three Rivers Health District. And the second is an appropriation because they are requesting an additional $3,703 from a prior year appropriation that wasn't expended to help with a project for bonuses that was approved in prior years. So it's just, if you want to explain what your contract is, that's the loophole, that's the portion of this that I couldn't close.
Sure. No, thank you. And good afternoon, everyone. So the 211,489 is the number that was approved by the board last year for the health department to provide our public health services. The request for the board is for us to carry forward the $3,703 of surplus that we experienced in fiscal year 22 into our cooperative budget for the current fiscal year that we're in and actually coming up on an end of. And that will just allow us to draw down additional state dollars. And essentially that request, if approved, will, instead of the health department cutting a check back to the county, the money will just stay with the health department. And that's allowed us to draw down an additional $6,000 or so from the state. And that request was made because the state passed the budget last year that mandated bonuses for all state employees. So we were looking for creative measures to actually meet that requirement.
So again, if we want to, the resolution, our 2023-05 is approval of that contract that Matt has on the screen right now. I think that's it. And so that's the first step, is approving that resolution. And then we'll ask for your approval of the budget request, or both.
I'll entertain.
I see the agreement between the health department and Middlesex County, I don't see where there's a particular resolution and or number. Am I missing something somewhere?
Let me correctly find my page numbers.
Page 80.
Oh, page
It
80.
goes over to page 81.
Yeah, it's at
Okay.
the end.
Oh, okay. Normally, I think it's on the front end, isn't it?
The
Yes, sir.
actual budget request is on page 82.
Right.
Yeah, I just scrolled halfway down the packet to get to it.
Okay, so we need, is there any particular order? Do we need the resolution for the contract first or the resolution
them.
for the request of the funds? Or do we need to do both?
You can do them at the same time. If you choose to do them individually, I would ask please that you adopt the resolution, which is authorizing the contract and then the appropriation, or you can make
Do
a
you have-
motion. Sorry.
Do you have a preference of how we should do it?
Yes, sir. You need to adopt. Oh, no, I don't. How about this? You can make a motion to adopt resolution R-2023-05 and approve the budget supplement request form FY 2023-35.
Fine, thank you. I will make the motion to approve R 2023-05 and then the budget supplement request of 2023-35.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
Mr. Harris.
Gentlemen, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Harris, second by Mr. Jesse. Any further discussion?
Heather, you did check over.
I just got one question.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yeah,
Wayne, oh, sorry. Mr. Chairman, would you like me to answer Mr. Jesse's question?
I didn't hear the question. If you could repeat it and answer, that'd be great.
Yes, sir. So Mr. Jesse asked if I reviewed this, and I did. Wayne, I drafted the resolution and I did review the agreement, and I did not have any changes. This is an agreement that we've reviewed previously, and it's the exact same form.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Williams?
Yes, I just got one question on the budget of the $211,489. And you said the unspent money from Y-22, you won't put it on to that budget. So in adding that $3,703 on, that would change the total of the $211,489. So you wouldn't have to cut the check back to the county.
Correct. So if this is approved, instead of us writing you a check for $3,703, it would just stay in the health department's account and we would draw down the matching state funds.
And that'll cost you to draw more money from the state, you're
Yes, sir.
saying?
So right now, look, fiscal year 22, the budget match was about 36% and the state covered the other 64%. So we would draw down an accompanying match to that.
So then you have another $3,700
And yes, sir, and change.
that'll go in your budget.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
All the question.
Roll call, please. Microphone.
Mr. Jesse,
Aye.
Mr. Coons,
Aye.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough.
Aye, motion carries. Can I did have a question.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
curious about the, in the list of the community health services.
Yes, sir.
It was interesting to see what an expansive list
Yes, sir.
is covered by VDH. A lot of things I never would have thought of. But I am curious about the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Act septic pump out and what the obligation is that is expected of citizens along those lines.
So it's actually already set in the Code of Virginia that anyone that resides in a coastal preservation area actually has to have their septic system. If they have a conventional system that doesn't have a certain type of filter installed with it, it's supposed to be pumped or inspected every 5 years. That actually, up until this coming up July, is a responsibility, an unfunded mandate that's been passed along from the state to the counties, but effective July 1, it'll be the health department's responsibility to actually, I don't want to say enforce because we're not going to go slapping out citations to people, but provide that education, provide the outreach, help individuals secure funding to do that pump out. requirement in partnership with the PDC and others. So there'll be no additional responsibilities or ask of the county for that. We have started to reach out to county staff to better understand how they identify individuals when properties are being developed that are falling in this preservation area that fall into that requirement. And then moving forward, monitoring who's actually been noticed of this requirement, who's actually had their system pumped. So we're working with all the local pump and haulers and all the other partners around the table to do that.
And Mr. Chairman, if I could just elaborate briefly on what Brendan just said. He has us to blame for that. One of the areas we've been successful in lobbying the state over is actually moving those duties to the state, to the logical state agency that governs septic tanks. It used to be we'd have to notify people through the planning department. The health department regulates septic tank installation. It only made sense for them to regulate the Chesapeake Bay pump out program. So thank you.
And those positions are actually funded in full by the state. So moving forward, we're going to have 4 staff across the 10 localities, but those positions are funded entirely by our special fund allocation from the state.
Only said it's 25 years to get that.
I just curious, because I recall getting a notice, it's probably 2012, that said if you haven't been pumped out in 5 years, you need to prove that you have. And that created a whirlwind throughout the county.
Yeah.
It was a boon. Was a boon for the pump out services. But then 5 years later, there was no. It seemed to just go off the radar screen. And
We've
so
been
will it
working with
come
the
back
state.
onto the radar screen. Is
Yeah.
that-
It will be something, and that's why, our goal is not July 1 to hit send on a mailing list. We're going to start
Right.
working with counties and the press to make sure that folks know that this is coming, and this is not intended to be an enforcement action from day one. It's really about outreach and education and connecting people to resources, similar to if you have an alternative or engineered system on your property that has to be maintained and reported every year. This is kind of a similar type of program, just one that's a little more foreign to people, just because the inconsistency sometime in how that education is provided.
I think it'd be fair to say that somewhere along the line there, things were put on pause until the state figured out how they wanted to handle the program. And that's why you haven't got a remote notice.
Well, just take advantage of the opportunity to share the concern here. If you ask the people who are building docks here, they're building them 1.5 feet higher than they did 15 years ago. Because either we're sinking or the water's rising or both. But we are suffering from septic failures increasingly, and it's going to get worse. And so this is it's a very important issue, since we exist because of the Chesapeake Bay. So appreciate your taking this over.
No, absolutely. And we've been in close partnership with the PDC to start thinking about creative solutions to address that issue, because if you do have a conventional system that was there 20 years ago, it'll be there in 10 years. So pumping and hauling is not going to help when a system is 2 foot underwater. So, looking at creative solutions to help mitigate these problems moving forward.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Y'all have a good evening.
Thank you.
All right, next we have Matt, we got administrator updates. We're up to page 84 in the packet.
Yes, indeed. I'm gonna look over at Anne Marie and ask her if she has anything she wants to add first. Are you good?
I do. Actually, I wanted to let you know that we have been working with, and we did post a position for the administrative assistant in Commonwealth Attorney Hurd's office. His administrative assistant left, and we met with him, make sure that we had the right job description and we had the right posting. So that's been out, I think, for 2 weeks. Probably have a few applicants, and I think he's going to start interviewing them next week.
Yeah, I believe he's on vacation now. We've really tried to work pretty consistently with him, to try to help him and assist him in getting the advertisements out for that position. The only other thing I had, Mr. Chairman, is while I met with Keith briefly at the office the other day, we talked about the state budget. They really don't have a clue of when they're going to have a state budget adopted. I think there's still work going on. It's my understanding same as the work session, that the holdup is still these bonuses, when to pay them, who gets what. And then whether or not to reduce the corporate income tax rate, I believe that's part of the overall discussion. I asked Keith, do you think it's going to be as late as June? Could be, but we really have no way of telling. So that's your budget update. And would invite everyone here tonight to come to our budget work session, budget public hearing on April the 13th at 7 o'clock in this building. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have.
Wait. So the state budget is not going to be anticipation in June. Is that what you just said?
That it could be as late as June. Yes, sir. And if they go later than that, they have to do some pretty heavy lifting on the Constitution to be allowed to go past that fiscal year deadline.
Okay, so how does that affect us for the late date that we have or the early date that we have to pass our budget?
The items in our budget that would be affected by state funding, I think largely have been handled by the state. What they're arguing over largely, I'm going to go out on a limb and say doesn't affect our budget. Other than if they decide to give constitutional officers the $1,000 bonus that they're proposing. I think that may still be a wrinkle, but largely they're
Okay, so
They're
let me
debating
play that devil's advocate for a minute.
right.
So we got caught on this last year,
Yes, sir.
did we not? Sort of,
Yeah.
kind of.
Sort of.
So, and if we're talking specifically about teachers' salaries and we're talking about a number, whatever that is, how are we insulated for the same thing potentially happening again from the assurances of Keith and whoever else that says, oh no, this part of the budget is fine, when in fact it could be changed at some point?
Let me answer it this way. If the state was to come in with a lower number, say for instance on the COLA, and I think that's what you're referring to, and we've already adopted our budget, we could amend our budget lower to match the states. We just can't go higher. So that's how we're insulated. I think the 7% is 99%. I'll own that if I'm wrong too.
Okay, well, we haven't agreed on the 7% yet either.
No, we haven't, but that's what's advertised in the budget and the school board budget.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, and we'll see. Like I said, I'm 99%, the 7% COLA at the state level is pretty much done. Yep.
All right, next we have the county attorney update. Heather, are you still with us?
Yes, sir, I am. And I do not have anything additional to add beyond what's in my report and the board packet, but happy to answer any questions that the board members may have.
Any questions? Emery, did you have something?
No, I was concerned about them, so especially.
Yeah, okay. Wait.
Heather, I'm just going to accumulate my questions. So when you come off your vacation, I'll have a big list for you.
Thank you, Don. It lets me know that I'm missed. It makes me sad if I don't have that waiting. So thank you.
Mr. Harris, can I add to that list with you?
No,
Would you mind?
just Mr. Harris. No, thank you.
All right, next is unfinished business, the Consociate Media proposed contract that we began discussion of last meeting. And we invited Stephanie Heinitz to join us for this meeting. There were a number of questions that were raised by board members about all aspects of the idea of engaging a public relations firm to help us with our communications. And Stephanie, really appreciate you being here.
Happy to be here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And maybe the best way to begin would be if you could just kind of provide an overview of the the service that is being offered.
Sure, happy to. And thank you all for tabling it last month and allowing me to come back and present and explain a little bit of it. So just kind of going back a little bit, when we first saw the RFP that the county put out, it was our understanding that the objective of the county and the board was to find a way to more actively communicate with constituents, businesses, tourists, or economic development opportunities outside of the county. And when we looked at the communications that you all are currently doing, we saw you guys really have a strong foundation of the different mediums to communicate on. So a website, you have active social media, but it's really a passive part at this point. So what we put together was a proposal of how do we take the foundation that you guys have already built and create a plan, and then also help execute on getting the messaging out to constituents. The proposal that we put together involved really two parts. One was this sort of phase one, where we come in and audit, how are you communicating now? What are the ultimate objectives? Where are we not getting the information out to constituents, residents, businesses? How can we improve that? And then putting a plan together. It was our understanding that you guys do not have an active communications team at the county level. It's really kind of handled by staff as it's needed to. So this would allow us to give you guys a plan and an approach that would be, again, more proactive. And then the second phase, just not knowing, since this would be sort of a starting point for you all to have a more active communications strategy, we would then work as a team member for the county, but obviously as a consultant, and actually execute on the communication. So when there's something important to communicate with a certain segment of the county or a certain group like businesses or something related to sewer, we would actually help execute on that. Our firm we have 13 people on staff. We're located right in Gloucester, so we're big Middle Peninsula lovers. We do quite a bit of work with the Middle Peninsula Planning District Commission, so I'm familiar with you guys. And one of the things that we would like to propose to bring to the table is that you're not just getting one person, but the way we communicate today is some people absorb information better on video. Some people absorb information better in the newspaper, some on social media. And what our team would be able to bring to bear is to be able to communicate across all of those different mediums in a proactive and a more robust way. That was a mouthful. Sorry. Does that help set the stage, sir?
Yes, thank you. So invite everybody to chime in with your comments. My own support for this initiative stems from how disparate our residents and our taxpayers are. I did some statistical work that was pretty interesting and enlightening about how difficult it is to reach the people who are actually paying the taxes in the county. And just as an example, 43% of all the real estate in Middlesex County is owned by people whose mailing address is outside of the county. And the only way that they can keep up with what's going on is if they initiate perhaps coming to the website or subscribing to the Southside Sentinel. There is some distribution of the Sentinel outside of the county, but it's a small portion of the 43% of owners that live outside the county. So that's one example of people who actually are paying real estate taxes here that are difficult to reach. And I think many more. That's about 4,000 people, I think it is. There are about 9,000 landowners in the county. So it's about 4,500 landowners that live outside of the county. The well in excess of that are the visitors to the county. We don't have mailing lists. We don't have an email list. We don't have a means of reaching them proactively for promotion or for directly reaching out to them to bring them to our events. So I think that the economic benefit potential is very substantial. But I also think that the communication opportunity to the people who are owning land and paying substantial taxes in the county, paying roughly half of the taxes in the county, being able to communicate with them, for example, when we postpone the due date for real estate taxes, or when we are planning for a change in the way we do our real estate. For example, if we go, we're currently working on the idea of doing assessments biannually as opposed to every 4 or 5 years, which is going to be a substantial change. Or any type of demographic research that we wanted to do to understand how we can best build our business base in the county. There's just so much that we could gain by having good communication. And I think that it could be quite valuable to us. So that's my own perspective on why I think that it's very important. And I know we can't burden, we got Glenn, who jumps in to solve technical problems and helps us with our IT. We have Kevin, who does just about everything. We don't have people who are trained or dedicated to the type of communication that citizens and visitors and tourists have come to expect from the sites that they visit. So that's my reason for thinking that this is a good way for us to move forward.
And I would echo my support. So those are the easy ones. The issue that I think we ran into next week is a little bit of sticker shock, a little bit of scope gap in terms of, we really didn't have a scope per se for you. But the thing that shocked me in particular, Stephanie, was with your intimate knowledge of this peninsula, you're Gloucester based, your work in the Middle Peninsula Planning District Commission. It was really my sincere hope that in reaching out to firms like yours, especially those that we're already working with through our Middle Peninsula Planning District Commission, the idea of you being current with what's going on around here and charging us for that seemed redundant to me. You're already in our neighborhood. So, however you have to look at your charges and then however this discussion evolves, for me, I really was wanting to capitalize on the fact that we're already a customer through Middle Peninsula Planning District Commission. And initially while I think Lud just illustrated some really good points about the economic development and the number of people that aren't actually mailing addresses here, even though they own so much land, those are all additional points in my mind to the original point for me, which was we just deployed broadband and very few people even understand what it took to do that.
Yep.
We just deployed water and there are still people that are discussing whether it was mandatory hookups or not. Like that's kind of 10 years old and not right. And we're in the middle of sewer and we've got at least one journalist that's actively against that and I don't think even hiding it. And so that forms a lot of public opinion, or at least it feels like it's one-sided and it's not exactly the view of those of us that are working on the projects for the community. So that was my big driver is I just think we don't communicate as a board very well in defense of all the good that we're doing. We've got a great audit. We'd put that up next to a lot of the counties around us. We've got lots of good stories to tell. We've got a lot of complex information to go through, like this school project that we're embarking on, like the sewer project, like the sheriff renovation. We can go on and on. There's a lot of good information, but we need to be active is the word you used. And we need to be modern in the sense of how we go to where the consumers are, even if they're constituents and not clients. I think that all applies still. And I think also the reality is, we have a lot of good stories to tell, and it doesn't just have to all be back alley, backbiting and a lot of the nonsense that's left in the gap when there isn't somebody speaking for us. And none of us wants one of us to speak for us. We really want a polished representation of us that we can hand over to the various media outlets and disperse ourselves now. So, echoing everything that Lud says, but the active was one of the things I focused on in your presentation. The modern is another. And then finally, we just have a lot of good stories to tell.
Well, sir, you are speaking my language about the good stories to tell. My background is as a journalist, so I have an amazing amount of respect for what our local, regional, and state newspapers are doing. And I think they are an incredibly important part of the communication strategy and having a good relationship with them, which I believe you all do. But I also believe really strongly that in today's modern age, we are all our own publishers. You all have a website that you have the ability to get people to read and drive people to, and you can be your own publisher and your own editorial planner. And I think when you do it through the lens of authenticity and truth and celebrating those stories, you can really start to see some movement. In relation to, or in response to your first comment about the connection that we have our firm to the Middle Peninsula, I do think that in the execution stage, where we're actually helping with the communications, we'll be able to operate much faster than another firm would, because we know the players, we know what pieces are connected. As you were saying that, I was just thinking, gosh, I want to get the Middle Peninsula rideshare program promoted throughout Middlesex. And what are we doing about Bay Direct? And these are all planning commission projects that we've been involved in, that if we can communicate them more actively to the different localities, I think would be really powerful. In terms of the pricing of that phase part, that second phase part, we based it on a number of hours. The RFP had actually outlined basically we need a communications team. And so we estimated, based on the audit that we would do, we think this is about how many hours you guys will need in support. So that's where the figure came from for the monthly retainer. The phase one, where we're doing an audit and a plan, that could be pared down a little bit. We could be, I prefer to have a plan when we start. I mean, to be completely cliche, like fail to plan, plan to fail. But it's not necessarily, that's not a showstopper. If you guys wanted to try and just start moving ahead before doing that sort of audit and planning piece. I'm not sure if that answers your comment, but was trying to.
Mr. Chair, when you just said, I would just like to say something. I understand, we also have the Oyster Festival, which is in River Run. We got the EDA, we got a new EDA person, and we are getting words out. Maritime museums and different things like that, and I'm basically looking at, I guess, more so the cost. We have some things in place here in Middlesex County. We got all these campground. People come here for the economic purpose, because we do have some avenues right now. It's just that I'm looking at it, and I know Stephanie does an excellent job for the PDC because I see her there all the time. But as a Middlesex County is getting the word out with a lot of things that are going on. From in my opinion, by being on the board for a while and the things that are happening in Middlesex County. And we are getting it out. Now, are you going to get it out to everybody? No, everybody's not going to get out there. But I know right now we have internet got to be on the other end of the county that we're working on that. Everybody don't have internet, as we know, in Middlesex County. But I'm thinking the timing of everything right now is not, right for this, in my opinion. That's just me, because I look at it, all right, we're going to have sewer coming. Yes. Okay. The EDA and the water authority, hey, you got to have water before you can get the sewer. So, you got some connection there. I know they got 700 some connection. I know we're not going to get them all, but you got to understand things are moving right now that I think if as Middlesex County work a little bit harder, because we got a lot of things on our plate. And I wish I could say that by Stephanie coming in here and getting things together, that things going to turn overnight. I don't know that. The fact's not there for me right now, because I know it's a lot of things going on just by being on a Banner Oyster Festival. And we got a new ED guy here. So I think if we could put more people to work that we already have here with the museums and et cetera, and all the things that we have here with the campgrounds and everything, the words are going to get out. And that's just my 2 cents. But I'm just saying, I think that right now, the time is not right. And I think we are doing fine right now. And then think about it. You got the water authority can work some more, getting the word out with because the water is there. And then we got Charlie as our engineer, and we're getting there. We'll get there. I'm not trying to put everything on Charlie, but I'm just saying there's other avenues that we can work on right now. And that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Wayne. Don, do you have comments?
Thank you for coming today, and
Happy to be here.
thank you for some of the presentation materials of what you guys can offer. And I'll give my personal opinion. There are a lot of moving parts in this county right now. I'm a big believer of the right time for timing of what you're going to do. And I think our county needs to get a little bit better grasp of the direction of how we're going to go there. And once we have a better direction, I think then it might be more prudent. You talked about a plan earlier. It's nice if the county can direct a plan towards you and then you can take it and run with it. I believe that 100%. I think that at this juncture, though, we're still in a little bit of the planning process of that. And I'll give you one example. We're asking the EDA, and with some administrative changes, they are going pretty strong in a very good direction that they haven't gone before. So they're kind of in that learning stage too of how we want them to go forward, and what kind of development of a lot of things as it relates to their board. So at this point, and with the cost, I don't want to say struggles, that's probably not the right word. Some people probably would use that, but the challenges that we have right now, we're really trying to be very sensitive about how we spend our money and what we're doing in that regard. I think from a promotional standpoint that we're probably a little bit early on some of the things. For instance, John mentioned the sheriff's department renovation, the high school potential renovation, and the sewer system, which really will be more ramped up in the next year. So I think once we have a little better understanding of what some of the challenges are with all of those things, we would be in a better position to say, here's what we need you to do, and here's what the direction that we want you to focus on. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you guys would have a more of an end objective in mind once you
Right.
get through a few key areas. The only thing I would advise is make sure you have a communications person as part of those conversations, because I think through PR and communication lens, you see things differently in terms of timing for layering in stories or outreach or creative ideas of how to reach out to people.
Absolutely.
So
And
having
we-
that as part of the strategic planning process, I think is
we
really
would
important.
need that
Yeah.
at some point. I'm not sure we need that today. However, I will
Sure.
echo this, and not speak for any other board members, but we all feel that that is something that we need to improve on in Middlesex County. How we do that is still somewhat up for debate, I think, at this point.
Well, I think that whether you guys decide to move forward now or later, at least you're thinking about proactive communications. And I think that's an incredible first step.
Well, I do too. You know, you only know what you know, and you don't know what you don't know. And how you want to be enlightened to that sometimes is on a time and schedule. And we'll get there. And thank you. And it's stuff that I don't know that this board has ever thought about, some of that. But we're trying to be somewhat progressive on what we're thinking that may ultimately long-term help the county. Thank you again for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Have any comments, Ms. Williams?
Well, I've seen you many times before, and you know, the idea of just talking to Don and Jesse, you know, I don't personally don't think the timing is right now, because we got to learn how to communicate one with another. You know, we have people in position now that don't communicate. Now, I guess if you tell me that you're gonna make this happen, and I said we probably need to change somebody. So the idea of what you're coming today and saying about communication, as well as Don said, we got to learn how to communicate together. And as a county, because right now we are separated as individuals. You know, we can't see the same scope of, what you're gonna do is come in and solve a problem that we have leadership that really not communicating one with another. You know, so, I gotta see it a little bit clearer than what it is before we spend any more money on anything, you know, and that's how I see it. Your presentation was great, and I'm glad to have you here with the dynamite smile, you know. You know.
Well, I'm
all-
not
all
going
that,
anywhere.
You
so-
know, all that is good, and I don't, you know, move too quick because I believe in team concept. I believe in teamwork, and I'm seeing a lot of things that we don't play on teams. And when you can come and say, look, y'all not playing on the same team, probably similar to somebody asks you to do something, you know, and they give you three options and say you pick one of the three and they don't look at the fourth one, you know, so, hey, I appreciate you coming. Hey, I've probably seen you at the meetings, you know, and we can talk some more so I
Yes,
can
sir.
understand exactly how you can come into Middlesex County and how you all can help us out to blend everything together and go through the county. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. And thank you, Mr. Jesse. If you're still on the phone, I neglected to say hello.
Well, I just got a couple other comments. Yep,
Because I kind of felt like you may want to have the last word. I just wanted to add a couple of things, if I may. I wanted to kind of sit back and listen. Would it be something that the board would consider, maybe if we sat down with Stephanie, sharpen the focus of the scope a little bit, and then come back with something a little less expensive, maybe? And I say that because I could see a lot. I'm kind of where Greg was at the podium last month. I can see some benefit, a great benefit of having someone like Stephanie's assistance. And of course, I know Wayne and Reggie's seen the wonderful work she does at the PDC. I have too. I can see a great benefit there, making sure that that message is sharp, focused, and to the point. So as John had said, we don't have pockets of this community who still believe we're going to require connections, things of that nature. I know that may be a fight uphill. We may be tilting at a windmill there. I'll own that. But I feel like, yeah, there is some sticker shock to this. We've done a little bit of research. I think, honestly, it's the going rate for what these types of services cost. But maybe we could refine that scope down a little more to where we still get a good benefit from having Stephanie's kind of looking under the tent at how we do things and maybe giving us some suggestions along some other lines. So I just wanted to say it's not a all or nothing type of thing, maybe. And I haven't spoken to Stephanie about this yet, but if it's something where maybe we can modify the scope, get her on board in a limited capacity, with a sharper focus, tightened scope. I honestly think it's going to be one of those things that once we have a taste of it, we really don't know what we've got because we've never had it. And once you've had that experience of having those services available to you, even just through the web, I think it's something that the board and the county will truly appreciate and probably ultimately say it's money well spent. Having said that, maybe a sharper focus, sharper scope, a little less expensive. I just wanted to throw that question out there. And I'm just remembering some of the discussion we had at the retreat. There was general unanimous consent that it was needed. So if it's sticker shock and we're a little worried about the amount of money, maybe we can adjust the scope down and get the money a little bit more palatable. Just a suggestion.
My thought would be that maybe that's something that we do off the table, so to speak, discuss options and, you know, where we may or may not be interested in going individually or, you know.
And honestly, I'll accept some of the fault of this because when we discussed it at the retreat, I had an idea of what the board wanted. And then I started saying, well, what do we want? What does the administration want? What do I think the county needs as a whole? So I think when Stephanie saw the RFP, it was like, oh my God, they need a suite of people. And we may not. It was just an all-in type of thing to see what was out there and see what kind of price we get. So I may have written the RFP so broadly and so extensively that it may have caused these numbers to go up a little bit more than they should have. I mean, I'll own that. So, but better be thorough on the front end and then scale it back than light on the front end and have to make it more robust. There's the 18th time I've said that word.
So I just had a couple of other thoughts. I've had several people have mentioned the timing is not right, and I totally disagree with that. We are embarking on a project to bring central sewer, which Mr. Jackson was thoughtful to bring up the development at Whitestone and at Kilmarnock as being on fire. Both of those locations offer central sewer. Whitestone just finished implementing theirs about a year ago. It's critically important. So I think if we are going to be successful at the rollout of sewer, and I'll just use that one project, it is a mammoth communication undertaking. We have 705 or 750 subscribers on the water system. They're probably 719 on the water system. So they're probably 600 that could be eligible for central sewer. It's an enormous project, and the communication needs to be upfront, and it needs to be repeated daily for years if it's going to actually be effective. And particularly if it needs to change people's perspective, because they may already have an opinion that needs to be modified. That takes time. Behind that, we have the school project, which we're a year away, probably a year away from bringing forth the school renovation project and the public participation in that project. These are huge undertakings, and I don't think that the timing is a few years from now. And I don't think that asking our county employees, like our water authority, who is not a communication vehicle, to work harder is an effective solution to what we need if we're going to get the word out. So I'm fully in support. And if we can reduce the scope and reduce the financial burden, I'm always in favor of that. But I do feel like the timing is now when we should be emphasizing a need for our communication. So if there's no other discussion, I will see if there is a motion to proceed with the proposal.
So moved.
Absent another second, I'll second.
And if it's discussion, Led, I still agree with you. I still hear the points of the others. And now I agree with you too about the timing. These are all major projects. We've survived other major projects without this level of support. And it has fallen to departments that are either not trained in this, or it's just one more job that gets lumped on them. And so we're already paying for this, and we're already putting it on the backs of employees that we just finally started addressing their healthcare woes. So the idea that this is, we're manufacturing a new expense and it's coming out of somewhere is, I think, not correct. I think we're paying for this service already. We're just buying it with the goodwill of our staff. And I think the main point remains that we will have better success with our projects and in our community if the communication channels are as modern as the infrastructure is now becoming.
Any other discussion? All right, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Koontz,
No.
Mr. Harris,
Can we take a second here? I'm confused. You just made the motion, but you voted against it?
I didn't hear anything in the discussion that suggested anybody was changing their minds, and I think we probably do need to pare back the scope. And I agree with you, but I do think we needed to have a discussion.
Okay.
And so since we didn't have one, I thought you didn't change your mind.
Okay, I'm with you. Thank you. No.
Mr. Williams,
No.
Mr. Jesse,
No.
Mr. Kimbrough.
Yes. Motion does not carry.
Well, I
Thank you,
enjoyed
Stephanie.
seeing all y'all anyways.
Glad you're here.
I can explain my constituents exactly how the money is being spent. So that'd be pretty good if you can do that. Because with your part that I think you want to do, I don't think they're gonna let you do what I want. Just to be honest with you, I don't think they're gonna let you do that. You know, that's the part I don't say.
Well, I'm not going anywhere. I live here, so I'll see you guys again. Thank you
Thanks,
all. Thank you,
Stephanie.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, everybody, for a great discussion. All right, any new business? Matters presented by the board. Mr. Williams. Anything?
I don't have anything right now.
John?
Nope.
Don?
Well, I'm not shy to speak. Just a quick question to Administrator. This that was given, are we gonna address some of this later?
Yeah, that was given to the board as a courtesy. That's the budget going to public hearing on
Okay,
April 13th.
wonderful.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
And since you asked me a budget related question, I want to extend my remarks earlier because I was just thinking about it. If the state was to come in and do something different than it's expected with the state budget, we can always make our appropriation of our budget contingent upon state appropriations.
Wonderful. That's good to know.
That's another level of
Yeah.
insulation. There you go.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
If you'll just bear with me a second, let me pull this up. I'd like to just give you a quick briefing. I would ask Wayne to do it since he also serves on the complex board, but since he's out and probably doesn't have the information I have, I'll go ahead, Wayne, with your permission, and chat a moment about the complex committee.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Hold on one second here. Hold on. Sorry, hold on. Well, I thought I had it handy. Where is it? Oh, here it is. Sorry. I just wanted to give you a quick update about the Middlesex County Sports Complex. I think earlier in the year or into last year, Johnny Fleet came in and talked about, I think had a few slide pictures, but I wanted to just give you a feel for what's going on at the sports complex, particularly this spring. We had construction of a new pavilion. Chase Withers, Mike Longish, Sean Parsley site work did most of that. We put 4 new scoreboards for the baseball fields. Brandon Putney, Joe Sears, Elliot Redmond, and Lynn Swanhart helped with that. We had expansion of the equipment shed that we had, so we could pull actually a piece of equipment underneath it. We do have one that we can store equipment inside. We put new dugout roofs on field 4 after the original roof blew off in a storm. Tony and Michael Pullman from Riverworks Builders did that project for us. Complete repainting of all the buildings at the complex. John Paulette and Paulette's Painting did that. Repairs to the irrigation system. Tommy Cooper came in and did that. Raised one of the fields to improve drainage and playability of the field, utilizing over 325 tons of sand. that was brought up to distribute on some of our fields. We replaced landscaping and mulch, Brian, Major River Birch Landscaping. Took care of that for us. Replacement of siding and trim on the field house used for the Little League. James Hatton and Hatton Homes did those repairs. Repair and re-shingling of the roofs of the facility. Chase Withers took care of that. Security lighting, Mike Longest took care of that. And building materials were provided by M&M Building Supply along with a donated picnic table. We also had about 10 other picnic tables that were donated underneath the pavilion. And the total value of labor and materials was over $50,000 that there was no bill that was sent to the county. And we're pretty proud about the ability to be able to do that from the generous donations and labor from members of Middlesex County. So I thought it was, you should know that.
That's great.
It is. It's really great when you see a large group of diverse backgrounds and people get together to get something done. And that was a big accomplishment this year of all those projects that we had done. So thanks.
Mr. Jesse, any?
Yes, as
the
you know,
board?
we all did attended the Person of the Year by the Kiwanis. I'd like to commend John for emceeing and a great job that Matt did there too, speaking on Greg Chambers. I also have, I will have an Oyster Festival Foundation meeting Thursday coming. So, and that's it for my committee reports.
Thank you. I have nothing to add. I will open the floor for public comment.
Public comments.
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Hallie Holmes and I live Saluda District. As I was listening to the young lady explain about promoting Middlesex County, there is a young lady working with the EDA that is doing the same thing. So I don't know if the two can work together or what, but that young lady through the EDA is doing it for Lancaster County and Middlesex. Some of the same ideas. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Holmes. Anybody else like to address the board?
Linda Mahler, and I live in Urbana, and I'm just getting caught back up. We've been gone for a couple of months. I wanted to thank the board and all the other guys that worked on the short-term rental ordinances that you have put in for the county. Hal and I came, I guess, to Mr. Harris first, a little over a year ago with some ideas about it, and I just want to thank you all for everything. It's good to be back.
Thank you, Ms. Muller. Anyone else care to address the board? I'll close public comment and meeting is adjourned. We have to vote on adjourning the meeting?
I never understood this.
I don't get it, but
Some do, some don't, but it always makes you feel good when you do vote to do it.
all
We
right.
normally do.
Mr., do we have a second? Second
Reggie.
by Mr. Williams. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Coons, Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Williams, Mr. Jesse,
Yes.
Mr. Kimbrough.
Yes.
Thank you all.